Is the flow of sound the same in all Arabic letters? Does the sound flow as easily when we say the hamza, na, versus when we say the sin, nas? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's the topic for today's video, and it's about an attribute that has to do with the flow of sound of letters. Let's start with an example. The hamza in the word na'murukum, the flow of sound is restricted. We say na, na. We don't say na because that's incorrect. So the flow of sound is restricted. On the other hand, nasta'een, nas, the flow of sound with the sin flows easily. So the attribute that describes the restriction of the flow of sound is called shiddah. And the attribute that describes the easy flow of sound is called rikhawah. Now some letters fall in between where the flow of sound is partially restricted, but it partially flows. Like the ayn, na'bud, na. The flow of sound is partially restricted and it partially flows. The attribute there is called Bayniyyah. So shiddah is when the flow of sound is restricted. Rikhawah is when the sound flows easily. Bayniyyah is when the sound is partially restricted and partially flows. So what other letters share the same attributes? The letters that have shiddah are combined in the statement ajid qatin bakat. All these, the flow of sound is restricted when they're pronounced. Aj, ad, aqo, ato, ab, ak, at. And the letters that have bayniyyah, where the flow of sound is partially restricted and partially flows, are combined in the phrase lin umar, al, an, a, ar. And all the remaining letters have rikhawah. Al, az, as, af, al. And here's a question to think about. How does this attribute affect the length of the letter when it's pronounced? The answer is in two parts. If the letter has a haraka, i.e. fatha, kasra, dhamma, all the letters are of the same length. Daraba, daraba. The dad, the ra, the ba, because they had a haraka, they're all the same length. The second part of the answer is, if the letter has a sukoon, the length of the letter is different if it has rikhawah, bayniyyah, or shiddah. If the letter has shiddah, then the length of the letter is short because the flow of sound is restricted. Na'murukum, na, na'murukum, and ajr, ajruh, ajruh. And the letters which have bayniyyah are medium in length, like the ayn, na'bud, na, na'bud, and the mim, alim, alim. And if the letter has rikhawah and it is sakin, the length of the letter will be longer, as in the sin in nasta'een, nasta'een, and the sheen in rushda, rushda. So let's summarize the 5 key points. First, shiddah is when the flow of sound is restricted and its letters are ajid, qatin, bakat. Second, bayniyyah is when the flow of sound is partially restricted and partially flows, and the letters are lin, umar. Third, rikhawah is when the sound flows easily, and that's all the remaining letters. And how do these attributes affect the length of the letter? If there's a haraka, they're all the same length. Daraba. If the letter has sukoon, then the length is different if it has shiddah, bayniyyah, or rikhawah. Shiddah will be short, bayniyyah will be medium, rikhawah will be longer. That's a simplified summary of these attributes to capture the main points. Barakallahu feekum, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.